And we are live with Frank Zanow for another CEO Wisdom podcast. Frank is CEO at Neuromotion BV. He's in the Berlin area. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico, and Neuromotion develops cells and services equipment and for the study and treatment of human brain function in a clinical and research applications context. So it's a pretty cool company. We're going to talk about EEG here, BCIs if we're lucky, and everything in between. This podcast is brought to you by bookwritegpt.com. If you want to take some of your LinkedIn content and write a beautiful book that you can publish on Kindle, you can go to bookwritegpt.com. We have a free credit for you to have your own AI written book. Frank, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Hi, Charles. Thanks for having me here. Now about myself, I was born and raised here in Berlin. Actually, in a small town in East Germany. I went to study electrical engineering and was lucky enough to be in the middle of my study when the wall fell. So I had the chance to go to Holland to do my PhD in a town called Enschede in Eastern Holland. Did my PhD in applied physics, and this way ended up with brain research.
And why the brain specifically? Is it the most complex challenge to solve? Why have you picked that area?
It's certainly a complex challenge, yes, in terms of, say, the physics behind electrical brain activity, but also, simply the complexity of the brain as an organ, the brain anatomy, but brain physiology is super complex. So for me as an engineer, it was interesting to study, the physics behind electrical brain activity and to get engaged in computer modeling of that.
You've been CEO of Neuromotion for more than a decade now, I believe. What's been challenging in that specific field of business, and why also start your specific company and not go in the academia field, for example?
That's a very good question, Charles. So I went into computer modeling, EEG and MEG, which is electroencephalography and magnetoencephalography. And together with my friend Thomas Knöscher, we thought about making the software available that we developed during our research to others who are applying this to their field of application. And that's typically neuroscientists of all sorts, psychiatrists, psychologists, cognitive researchers. And so we got excited by the idea to write not only software for our own use and research, but also to make it available to others. So already during our PhD, we started sharing that software with others. That was called the Advanced Source Analysis software. And with that in mind, both of us, my friend and I, we started a second job as a postdoc at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Got engaged in cognitive neuroscience and human brain sciences, working with MEG devices and all that. And at that time, I decided for myself I want to become an entrepreneur and get exposed to something I'm totally unfamiliar with. And that came along with giving up on the idea of continuing with my academic career. So I was 29 when I finished my PhD, defended my thesis, and started a company.
And what has been challenging so far? What have you built, and how much sleepless night, how much brain breaks did you need to have to build what you had today?
Yeah. Now, Charles, back then, you can imagine coming, that was 8 years after the wall fell. So my background in market economy was not very deep going. So no one told me how to run a company, and I was proud of the skills I had, but I was very much aware of those skills that I don't have. And yet we found, my co-founder and I back then, we found we have a cool, innovative, attractive piece of software that is worth being shared with others. It was in the early days, it was very much a one-man show, and it was learning by doing so, by traveling to others, seeing how others operate in this area of application. I learned how to find my own role in this. And after a while, I learned that, you have to make your product, you have to deliver a story behind the product. And people not just buy what there is, but also what there will be. So there's a lot of trust that people gave me to continue with what I started with. And software is never finished. So I also learned that. You develop a version 1, and then you simply work with the feedback you get, and with that feedback you can make a better version of the same, and improve and innovate and keep innovating, and that's very important.
And right now you have Imagine and ANT Neuro. These are your two like sub companies and products, right? If you could describe what these are about.
Yeah. So the story began with ANT Neuro, in fact. So in '97, we started that company as a Dutch limited liability company. I went to Berlin in 1999 after 7 years in Holland. And together with another friend and co-founder, we started Imagine, Medical Imaging GmbH, so another limited liability company, but here in Berlin. And we wanted to kickstart a company for clinical analysis of these data. So there's a lot of clinical EEG, and we found that much of the knowledge we have collected, or we've had back then in the field of modeling electrical activity, could be translated to clinical use. So brave as we were, we started a second company, and there was a time for me to seek investment and try to find partners. And with another co-founder, we then started to put this under a holding called Neuromotion, and started building these companies. So ANT back then was focusing on the science market, if you wish. Imagine here in Berlin went on with getting under quality regulation, under ISO norms, then start producing software that is CE marked and then FDA approved. So to bring this into clinical markets. And this drove us into interesting adventures. So how to keep innovating in the neuroscience market, and at the same time be under regulatory compliance for medical products. But we kept running two companies.
And you have so many products. Just like in ANT Neuro, you have EEG solutions, EEG amplifiers, EEG caps, neural navigation solutions, and neonatal monitoring. Which of these categories have been like the most exciting, the most profitable for you?
Charles, they're all like my little babies. And one that I'm really proud of is a product that is called Neo. Neo is a product for critical care monitoring of prematurely born babies. So we are brave people. We bring a product into the market for neonatal intensive care units. And these products are being used 24/7 in intensive care. And it's very, very far away from delivering a product to a neuroscientist. So 10 years ago, actually, we started with that product thanks to inspiring discussions with neonatologists. And on that basis, we developed that thing. But at the same time, we have high density EEG for cognitive researchers. And we're also very proud of that. One of our systems has been in space 2 weeks ago with a SpaceX mission. We've had systems in very interesting, challenging measurement, recording situations for EEG in the Amazon, in sports science, and various types of sports, athlete sport. So this is not boring work. I'm really privileged with seeing leading neuroscientists, sports scientists, clinicians, psychiatrists, and having discussions with them about what drives them in their field and how to help them be the best in what they do.
And you manufacture these at scale. What does the production and supply chain looks like?
Now look, making a complete solution in any of these fields requires hardware and software. It's always, we have to be complete in that sense. We have an engineering team here in Berlin of 50, 60 people. And we rely on a vast network of suppliers and partners. So suppliers are also, important and valuable partners in that sense. This electronics for amplifying EEG and digitizing that, this electronics is relatively complicated. And we deliver clinical products, so all this is under medical regulated compliance. So talk about around about 2,000 suppliers that we work with. So a lot of supply work, logistics behind that, whereas the actual assembly within our factory is minimal.
Interesting. And tell me about your ICP. Is it like a different client persona for every single of your products? Is it hospitals? Is it research? You also target business? Tell me a bit more about that.
No, I think much of our business is generated through neuroscience and cognitive research. So say here at Charité Berlin, which is the biggest university hospital in Germany, there's research ongoing on rehabilitation after stroke. We use a hand exoskeleton and brain-computer interface to do real-time analysis of EEG and then control robotic arm or robotic hand movement, stuff like that. So that's very much in the research field, but applied to a clinical problem. At the same time, we have high-density EEG work going on in, say, early detection of Alzheimer's dementia. But also we have hyperscanning of multiple participants in sports activities like juggling or table tennis. And then we want to study competition and cooperation.
Interesting. Yeah, tell me, let's double click on the robotic arm thing. That's quite interesting. How far are we in that space? Let's say that I'm missing a limb, an arm. Is it possible nowadays to actually control it with a robotic arm?
Impossible is nothing. And we have been working for a decade and a half, I think, on brain-computer interfaces. Our start was made in 2010 when we were part of a European project called Mindwalker. And Mindwalker had the ambition to help wheelchair users to be back and walk thanks to exoskeleton. And we developed the EEG component to deliver real-time data about the brain activity that reflects your intention to stand up and walk. And we came quite far in those 3 years, but I wouldn't call it a finished project. So back then we were very happy with the intermediate results. And as it is with the funding, we had to stop at a certain point. But these intermediate results, especially on the exoskeleton side, also were very impressive. And look at the progress now made with AI. It's huge. Yeah.
Right. And is that what stops research? Is that like the brakes normally, like the lack of funding?
No, I would make a difference between research and product development. So typically with all these funding programs, you're incentivized to do research, development. The endpoint is a working prototype. But as you know, that's not a product. So any say design will not be funded. Regulatory or testing, compliance testing, safety testing, and so on will not be funded. Any marketing activities will be your own investments. So it's how serious are you about bringing it from the prototype to a product? That depends on more deep going analysis. And typically after 3 years of doing a research project, you also learn more about the market. So it still is a gate to say, hey, it's worth doing that and investing in it or not. So it's not always automatically a product.
And how do you determine which product would be next, which category you'd be bullish about investing more resources in?
My wish list is very long. And we see that we can do a lot now with our own resources in our own company. We are currently busy with another robotic arm solution that deals with magnetic stimulation. You may have heard of transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's a form of non-invasive brain stimulation, and we have a robotic arm solution that automatically places that TMS coil over the head with high precision, and that's a very cool project and ambitious. We have shown that I think 2 months ago in a big international conference in Japan with a good success. But not everything we can do with our own resources, so we have to be mindful about what can be done in a feasible timeline. With a feasible timeline. So we also, found that it's really worthwhile to partner with others others in the industry or to start up companies. So we have a number of neurotech startups that we participate in, and those startups then have a dedicated, fixed, a clear business plan for that product and become investable for just that. And then we support these companies with technology or engineering services to kick it off.
Right. And the robotic arm actually goes over my head to stimulate some parts of my brain. That's pretty much rocket science. So like, how does it know what part of my brain needs to be stimulated? Give me a bit more info about that.
Yes, so that is a very hot topic in ongoing neuroscience and research. The idea is to learn from functional connectivity measures, where in your brain is certain activity that may need to be stimulated, and the area of application where this finds its place is likely the treatment of major depressive disorders, MDD. And in here, there were very interesting findings based on anti-correlation and fMRI, resting state experiments. You find the best possible spot to stimulate with magnetic fields. You find that more or less automatically through analysis of these fMRI data, and then translate that to a target for stimulation for the TMS system. And that's exciting. Yeah, it relieves it answers the question actually where to stimulate. Then still some other parameters need to be adjusted, and we hope to use EEG for that. And with that, we can more or less automate the task of non-invasive brain stimulation in this field of application.
And is the future non-invasive? Because ideally, I think if we had like nanobots, which are incredibly complex, right, and need to be medically regulated, we could go invasive and the effect could be greater. Non-invasive has less barriers, but probably also less efficacy. Is that right to say?
No, that's the underlying assumption that the closer you are to the brain, the more effective you can be, and the more information you collect. But it comes at the cost of being invasive, invading the body. And we here at ANT and Neuromotion have decided to stay non-invasive and get the best out of that. And looking at the progress made in machine learning based on non-invasive EEG data, we are quite confident that this is a good path forward. But different solutions may be required for different problems.
Right. What do you think of Nudge? I think they launched a week or two ago, like they're this whole brain interfaces for everyday life by ex Coinbase founder. Have you checked into that project? Do you think it's promising?
I cannot comment. I didn't check it.
Okay. Yeah, they look pretty ambitious. I'm just gonna show you real quick what they look like. This is their device, right? And they're also like non-invasive.
I did check it. Thanks for reminding me. I did check it.
What were your thoughts about that?
Isn't that a focused ultrasound device?
Yes, this year.
So the underlying technology is a very cool technology, also relatively new in this field, so-called focused ultrasound, and we also have collaborators in that field. So look, magnetic field stimulation is called non-invasive brain stimulation because we don't need to invade the body with instruments. Obviously, we deliver energy. And yeah, I remember this. Thank you. And with focused ultrasound, we follow the same route. So we deliver energy, but in a very focused way, in a very focal way. And we can go to deep structures. So we are excited about this. And what I just said about robotic arm and navigating to a certain spot and a certain target, all this technology can be one-on-one applied to transcranial focused ultrasound. And we see a lot of future in this, yes.
Right. And what do you think about Neuralink's invasive approach? Are you bullish about what they're doing?
They do what they have to do. We do believe that accessing the brain in a non-invasive way with high-density EEG has value. There's upcoming technologies such as OPM, optically pumped magnetometers. So another new form of MEG, also non-invasive, also high density. All this has high value for collecting, rich information in real time. I don't see a hard need for invasive techniques, but in certain cases it may make sense. But future will tell.
Are you using EEG on your own brain to analyze it and optimize it on a daily basis?
No, we have an optimization process called learning. So, I've been through several years of learning without any technologies added. But I've been using EEG and brain stimulation techniques many times on myself. And it's, it helps you understand. So, measuring your own brain activity tells you something. You do understand different brain states. Also, enhanced states of consciousness, sleep, changes in EEG due to substances of all sorts, physical exercise, concentration, cognitive load. So all this, everyone's got a brain. All of this is visible in your data. It's in the data, literally.
And studying the brain for so long, have you understood things about humans and their thinking processes that most would never understand?
That's a difficult question. Understanding is a big word, but I think we keep trying to understand.
But what insights have you got from like studying so many brains? What deep insights that most humans wouldn't think about did you get from your experience?
Yeah, now there were several studies that I was involved in, and not as a investigator, but supporting the study. One that intrigued me was 6 years ago. I supported a group at the National Institute of Mental Health in Prague, in Czech Republic, who were brave enough to go to the Amazon and study the use of a psychedelic substance, ayahuasca, in traditional indigenous ceremonies and the role of set and setting in these ceremonies. And we did that with high density EEG in the middle of nowhere in the Amazon. And we're trying to understand what is the role of the setting when using such substances. And that was a very interesting study. We now learn quite a bit with that. We repeated the study also in a natural environment, but also in the laboratory. So the experimental approach to studying the brain and the nature of what is consciousness is what excites me.
And what happens to the brain? Do we see massive activation in some zones? Do we see a suppression of the amygdala? Like what happens in the frontal lobe once you take ayahuasca, for example?
Yeah. Now, what we see that a lot of things happen in your occipital cortex to start with. So all the visions, all the the fascinating scenery that opens up in your mind is linked with a lot of occipital activation in your occipital cortex with your eyes closed. And what we also can see is your default mode network is suppressed and reduced, and that gives room to other activity popping up.
Tell me about default mode network. Are you referring to habits, thinking patterns, like normal mindset, routine mindset?
Rational thinking, your mind rattling through your rational thoughts, planning activities, and so on. That's your default mode activity.
And isn't ayahuasca invasive?
Well, it's a plant medicine, so just like any other substance, you have to drink it in this case. And that's how it doesn't work. But it's not the medicine as a medicine, it's an experience. So it's embedded in an experience. It's part of the ceremony.
Very cool. Well, Frank, thank you for coming on today. Tell me about where we can find out more information about you.
Yeah, no, I'm found on LinkedIn under my name, but our company ANT Neuro is found under ant-neuro.com.
I was Frank Zanow and Charles